So, last time on Let's Talk EUC, I went through the process of installing a pair of Horizon connection servers in my lab environment and walked through what that install process looks like. This week, the plan was to do an episode that covered 4 configuration steps in one video. And, well, I recorded that, and then after listening to the audio and realizing there were some issues that required a re-record, I decided I was going to go back to the drawing board and restructure this episode a little bit. So over the next couple of days, we're going to release the 4 tasks as individual videos. But first, before we begin, my name is Sean Massey. Over the last 10 years, I've worked very closely with mobility and end-user computing technologies. If you want to master these technologies, then join me as we learn best practices, how-tos, tips and tricks, and get advice from industry experts. So let's talk EUC. Now, as I said in the opening, we're going to restructure this video a little bit, and instead of doing 4 tasks in one video, we're going to break this up. And the first task we're going to cover is how to add vCenter to a Horizon environment. Before I go into the actual steps for adding the service account, there are things I need to cover. When you set up Horizon in a production environment and you integrate it with vCenter, you do not want to use the default SSO domain admin account. This account has full permissions across everything inside of vCenter. And in a production environment, you want to use least privileged access for your service accounts. Because if that service account does get breached or you have to reset the password on it, one, whoever breaches it may end up getting full access to your vCenter if they get it through Horizon. And 2, if you use that admin account in multiple places, there's a number of services you would have to touch to reset the password, and it gets really hard to track where that account is used. So we're going to go over to the Vmware documentation, and inside this documentation, there is a couple of articles in the Horizon installation guide that talk about the role that you would need to create for Horizon and the permissions that this account requires. There are 2 different sets of privileges, one if you're using instant clone desktops and one if you're not. I will drop a link to this in the show notes, but I'm not actually going to go through the process of creating this role. I already have this role created in my lab. Just in case you're new to this, the process of creating a role in vCenter is fairly straightforward. You would go up to Menu, you go down to Administration, and then under Roles, you can create the role that you need. Now, I created a Horizon role. I think I called it Horizon Delegated Access is the one for my lab, and we can see the privileges that are assigned to it. And there's a number of things. So like I said, I'm not going to go through and show how to create this because there are a lot of boxes that need to be checked. But you can create a new role here just by clicking the plus button and then go through and select the roles or the privileges that your account will need. Now, when it comes time to assign that role, we need to do this from the host and clusters view. You would just right-click on the data center object and go to Add Permission. The first thing you would do is you would select your domain, whether it's an Active Directory domain you have integrated, the local vSphere .local or whatever you named your SSO domain, and you would then just search for the user account. So I'm going to select my domain, and we'll just search for view admin, and then we select our role, Horizon Delegated Access, and then we would just also check the propagate to children, and that would allow us to apply this to all child objects, which is required. Now, I already have this set up, so the next step would be to go into our Horizon environment. And to set up vCenter Access, we have to go to the Servers tab. Now here we go ahead and click Add, and then we would start by doing our vCenter URL. And then here's where we put in our username. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that in. And then we'll go ahead and copy our password. Everything else underneath here, under the advanced settings, you shouldn't touch unless directed to do so by VMware support, as this controls the number of concurrent operations that occur in the environment. So we're going to go ahead and click Next, and this is going to reach out to the vCenter server. Now, in a brand new environment where you have a brand new vCenter and a brand new Horizon environment, and you haven't replaced any of the certificates on that vCenter with ones that have been issued by your trusted CA, or you're not trusting the root certificate from vCenter, then you may be prompted to accept the certificate on that vCenter. Now, in this case, we're not going to see that because in my environment, I've already taken care of this, but we're going to go ahead and click Next. Now, on the next tab, we configure our storage settings. That includes the ability to reclaim or unmap unused blocks on full clone desktops, and enable the View Storage Accelerator option, or CBRC, on the host to cache commonly used blocks in RAM. Now, in my lab, I'm not using either one of these, so I'm going to turn these off. For production environments, you may want to consider them depending on your use cases. But if you are deploying into a cloud, those environments are built on all-flash vSAN. So you don't necessarily need View Storage Accelerator. It may not add much of a benefit since you have all-flash hyperconverged storage. The other thing is you may not be able to use it because those environments are locked down, and even your custom role will not be able to configure those because you won't have permission to enable those privileges. So we're just going to go ahead and click Next here, and then we could just review our settings and go ahead and click Submit. Now, this is only going to take a couple of seconds, and once it's done, we're going to see our vCenter server enabled in. All right, and we can see here our vCenter is ready, and our vCenter is ready to provision, and we can do instant clones. If we needed to edit our vCenter, say we need to update the service account password, we can just go ahead and click Edit, and then we just have to change our service account or our password in here and click OK, and then we'll just have to go through the next couple of tabs and click OK again. And so that wraps up this mini episode on how to add a vCenter server to Horizon. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below in the comments. And to keep up on all of the latest content that we put together, including the next couple of shorter videos on configuring Horizon for the first time, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and hit the notifications so you can get notified whenever those videos are released. Now, I'd like to say thank you and keep a lookout because on the next episode, we're going to configure the event database on PostgreSDB.